Hello and welcome to Foundations in Accountancy, an accountant in business. This is chapter number 1, which looks at the business organisation. Now this chapter is very, very important because it starts laying down some of the groundwork for some of the future chapters. So to make sure you're completely happy with everything that we're going to cover here, please guys. And to start off with, we're looking at business organisations. We need to start off with a definition. Now a business organisation has got to have some sort of organisation included within its definition. So we're going to look at the definition of organisation first, and then we're going to have a look at the idea of what a business is and how businesses can operate, and then that will allow me to have a definition of business. Now, the organisation itself, so the definition of organisation, this is a social arrangement for the controlled performance of collective goals. This is Handy's definition. And every now and again, I will talk to you about various individuals, such as Charles Handy, who came up with various different theories of management and organizations and such. And what will happen is I will throw their names out into the mix. You do not need to learn the names of these theorists. Unfortunately, sad geeks like my good self, when we learn these different theories, we learn the names of the individuals, and you actually develop a trend for what these individuals like talking about. And it means that you can apply it in more detail in other ways as well. Now, what we've got here is various different component parts of my definition, and I need to have a look at these different component parts separately to make sure I understand exactly what this is. So we have a social arrangement. That now means the social arrangement will allow for communication. Communication means that there's usually more than one person in place. So it's not somebody working by themselves. Even if this is a sole trader, that person will still be able to socially interact with somebody else, an external party. So it's not just one person alone. We need to have more than one person here. This social arrangement also means that it's not just for profit-making purposes. And I use the word profit-making very specifically because it means that it's not just a business situation. It's any type of situation where there's more than one person involved and you communicate with each other. You can then form an organisation. An example here could be a club which looks at sports issues, so a sports club. We have controlled performance, and the controlled performance here within this type of structured organisation, notice the use of the word structured being thrown in now. So the controlled performance within this type of structured organisation means that there is a way of doing things. And the way of doing things will be the systems in place and then also the procedures in place. The procedures are the ways we're supposed to do things. So the system actually allows me to do things in a certain way. The procedure says this is the way you should be doing it. And what that now means is if we are going to control the activities through these systems and procedures, we can then try to achieve common or collective goals. So we can try to achieve collective goals. So these collective goals now allow me to understand exactly what's going on within my organization. It allows me to understand where we're trying to get to, what we're trying to achieve, what are our organizational goals. So these goals are our key objectives. Now that's all well and good with regard to organizations, but why do we actually need these things? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a completely random example of an organization and just illustrate to you why this organization is better if it's structured, if it has more than one person in place. We're going to take a gardening organization. So we've got 3 people who work together doing gardening work, doing landscaping work in people's gardens. Now, why do we need to have this group of people working together to landscape gardens? Well, the first thing is you've got shared skills and shared knowledge. The 2 individuals who are working maybe on the lawn can talk to each other. They can understand exactly how the work that they will be performing will interact with each other. So you could be looking at things such as, well, if I put down this type of plant food, it means the lawn will grow in a very specific way. It will grow greener or taller or thicker or whatever. And then the next person has to cut the lawn. They now understand what type of lawnmower to use. So those types of shared skills and knowledge means that our performance can now be better. So shared skills and knowledge should lead to better performance. And performance is a very important aspect of everything that we do from a management perspective. And that's what this qualification is all about, turning you into good all-round general managers. The next thing is you can have specialization. So if 2 of our guys are actually working on the lawn, the third person may potentially be looking at working on the borders and just planting nice pretty flowers. So that person will specialize in nice, shiny, pretty, colorful flowers. Maybe certain types of flowers give off a certain type of scent. That will now mean that the specialization from that one individual means that our performance doesn't necessarily become more efficient. So we're not going to do it more quickly, so it's not more efficient, but it becomes more effective. So the end result is better. So the end result is better. Well, that's wonderful. What we also have is this idea of pooling of resources. And the pooling of resources means that if one person can't cut the lawn, then the next person can cut the lawn instead. It means if one person can't do a job for whatever reason, then because we've got these shared skills and knowledge, that now means that other parties can perform my jobs. Which means that if something happens to me, the business can still continue. The organisation will still survive. Now, these three things will allow me to actually generate what we call synergy. And synergy is when 2 plus 2 equals 5. So synergy is the sum of the parts. So the sum of the parts, the 2 plus 2, actually result in an output which is greater. So the output is greater than the sum of its parts. So 2 plus 2 equals 5. Synergy is also expressed as synergistic gains. And it's the extra plus 1 in there. So 2 plus 2 equals 5 means that we've gained by an extra 1 unit. Now, that's the basic understanding of an organisation. We will be developing this in a little bit more detail as we work our way through the syllabus. So don't worry if you don't quite understand it yet. It is quite an important aspect, but we will look at it again. What type of businesses do we have? So that's the organisation bit. Now what I'm looking at is the business bit. From a business perspective, we've got various different types of businesses, and the different types of businesses, you do need to have a basic understanding of this, will include things such as sole traders. Now with a sole trader, you have one person who is working for themselves. So one person is working for themselves. They will make all of the business decisions. They decide exactly what's going on. They decide when it will happen and how it will happen. They accept all of the rewards and all of the risks. So management and control lies with the sole trader. All of the risk and reward lies with the sole trader. What then tends to happen is this sole trader becomes quite good at their job, and they now become so good at their job they have to expand the business. They expand the business by taking on partners. So the sole trader traditionally has expanded to become a partnership. With a partnership, management and control lies with all of the partners together. So management and control lies with all of the partners together. The risk and reward, well, that lies with all the partners together as well. So all the rewards will be split between the partners, and if you've done your FFA paper, you'll understand this already. So all the rewards will be split up based on a profit sharing ratio or maybe some sort of salary split. The risk will be between all partners as well, and all the partners are said to have joint and several liability, which means that you are liable for all of your own actions and all of your partners' business actions as well. So you're liable for somebody else's business actions. Yeah, that could be quite scary. So what we then have is the development of partnerships then led to what we call limited liability companies. So with limited liability companies, what we're going to do is we're going to split management and control away from ownership. So we're going to split management and control away from ownership. And the way this works is management and control will lie with the directors who run the company on a day-to-day basis. Ownership will lie with our shareholders, and the shareholders will accept the majority of the rewards in the way of dividends and maybe an increased share price. However, their risk is limited, and it's because of this limited risk that we call these things limited liability companies. So it's the limited liability of the shareholders, which is really important here, which means that you do not have this joint and several liability within a company. And that's why companies are so popular. And that's why partnerships aren't quite so popular anymore. Okay, there are other organizations in here as well, and these three types of organizations tend to focus very, very heavily on the idea of generating profits. So these are known as profit-making organizations. There is another type of organization which is mainly focused in on profits, but not solely on profits. This is a co-op or a cooperative. And what happens here is the members of the co-op, so the members of the co-op effectively own it, but they also control it as well. So they own it and they control it. It's not the same as a partnership because these members will not normally get involved in the day-to-day activities. So they won't normally get involved in the day-to-day activities. But what they will do is they'll have a vote at the end of the period to say, we want the co-op to operate in this specific way. Now, this is different from a company. So this is different from a company. So don't get these confused, please, guys. Okay. Now, a co-op would normally be to generate profits so that the needs of the members could then be met. However, not all co-ops are designed to make profits. And this is why we use co-ops as a way of a bit of a link into what we call NFPs, not-for-profit organizations. Now, with a not-for-profit organization, what we have is an organization which has a different type of objective to a profit-making organization. Now, these type of NFPs may potentially be government-based organizations or they may be charitable-based organizations. Governments don't tend to try and make profits. Charities don't tend to try and make profits either. So it's that type of issue. Now, within these NFPs, you can split these down again into private or public sector organizations. If it's a public sector organization, you can look at things such as anything which is government controlled, such as maybe the health service, maybe a hospital. If it's in the private sector, you could be looking at things such as a charity. Now, if you've got what we call an NFP, so a non-for-profit making organization, so not-for-profit making organization, which is not within the public sector, so it's a private sector not-for-profit organization, we call these NGOs. So these NGOs are non-governmental organizations which are not designed to make profits. So they are not designed to make profits. They're not specifically linked to an individual government. They may be cross-governmental. These type of NGOs can include things such as UNICEF. So this has got a non-profit making objective and it's not linked to any individual government. It now means it goes across different jurisdictions and it can do basically whatever needs to be done across the globe, which can be amazingly powerful. So that type of thing can be amazingly powerful. When you're looking at all of these different types of organizations, you need to always bear in mind these various different aspects. Always think about the ownership. Who owns these organizations? Sole traders, the sole trader owns it. Partners, they own their partnership. In a company, they're owned by the shareholders. If it's a not-for-profit organization, it could be owned by anybody. The objectives will be determined based upon whether this thing is a profit-making or a non-profit-making organization. And then the activities that they perform, which are designed to meet those objectives, will be ruled by those objectives as well. Also, if you're a profit-making organization, you may find sources of funding quite tricky to find because people know there's a huge amount of risk. If you're a charity, you may find it quite difficult to source funding as well because people may not want to give to your charity. If you're a government, tax becomes your source of funding. The size of these organizations can change quite dramatically. You can have a sole trader, which is just one person trading by themselves. That can then grow to an international company such as Amazon or Apple, which are huge multinational companies. That now means that the size gets bigger as you move from sole trader to partnership to company. Companies tend to be bigger, and they tend to be bigger because there can be less risk associated with investing in them. And that risk shows that the liability here can be really important to me. So that risk shows me the liability here is really important to me. Now, please do make sure you're happy with all those aspects for me, please, guys. That brings us to the end of chapter number 1. Remember, there are some questions on the online portal, so do have a go at those online questions just to make sure you're totally happy with everything which we've talked about here. Apart from that, thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll see you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on chapter 2 very soon.